Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Cities Skylines. Today we have another Let's Build here in Cities Skylines, and today we're building something that's very different indeed. This is a tiered city, and while right now it may not look like much, we're actually building this one from the top down, which is something I discovered was completely necessary after several hours of testing this thing, because as it turns out, terraforming is an absolute nightmare sometimes. It really is. I sort of lost track of how long I spent testing this idea, but we'll not bother talking about that too much. The whole city in general is on 3 different levels. Each one is 50 meters apart in height, and I think the bottom 2 levels are 40 meters in, you know, from the edge to the start of the next level. You'll see it when we get there. The whole thing's a big circle, so everything is, well, based on circles. And pretty much the whole thing is symmetrical in terms of road layout anyway. It's, I don't know, it's I guess kind of futuristic. I was considering using a custom building style / theme for this entire build, but I couldn't get it working. I don't know, apparently it doesn't work with the building themes mod that I use, so I didn't bother. I have way too many themes installed as it is, so probably for the best. I just end up using a mix of international and European, which actually turns out pretty good in my opinion. I like what I did with it. The residential layer and the very top layer, which is mostly offices, use international buildings, so they end up upgrading pretty quickly because we put in all of the monuments and landmarks. And you have these huge skyscrapers on those 2 layers, and then the bottom tier, which is predominantly industrial, that actually has the European theme, which gives you a bunch of buildings that are just old brick industrial buildings with large chimneys and stuff like that, and it looks really good, I think. I really enjoy the contrast there because it makes the industrial space look so much more filthy, I suppose, when compared to the very white, very clean upper layers using the international theme. And what you're seeing right now is actually me carving out that top layer. As I said, we're working from the top down. You can see the massive amount of land we're working with, and just going here and measuring out the distance that we're going to go around, and then putting in the, I suppose, the perimeter road that sort of marks out the circumference. I think circumference, no, diameter is, I'm remembering circles. Diameter is the distance across the entire thing, radius is the distance from the edge to the center, and then the circumference is the distance around the whole thing. Yeah, circumference is what I'm looking for. So I was measuring out the circumference of the whole thing using some roads there. And then this layer actually has, I want to say, 8 different roads going down to it, if I remember correctly. I believe there's 8 different roads. The whole city is actually only connected to 2 parts of highway, and they're sort of offset in an interesting way, shall we say. It's very strange. It is definitely very strange, but I am super happy with how the whole thing turned out. Some of the cinematic shots at the end of this video are just absolutely excellent. The whole thing just turned out exactly the way I wanted it to. This is the first time I've ever built something that I'd drawn out beforehand. I sat down and just grabbed a pen and some paper and sort of sketched what I wanted this to look like, and it's surprisingly accurate. What I'll do, if I remember to do so, I'll actually just sort of, I'll write it down. We'll grab my paper and be like, yo, what is it, like 4 minutes 20 into the video? Put in a picture of the thing that 4 minutes 20, oh god, 4:20, of course. I've written it down, so it's all good. I will put in a picture of the thing that I drew, which looks like the end result. So there you go. Enjoy that. It should be on screen like now, so there you go. It's not quite 4:20, but whatever. But the whole thing just turned out exactly the way I wanted it to. The build process took about, I want to say 3 hours, whatever. I pronounce words. I have multiple ways of pronouncing the same word these days. It's great. It's absolutely wonderful. But I actually, I'll be honest, it felt like it was a longer build process than it was. And I think that's because of just how much repetition there was in the entire thing, and how unlike anything else it was. I've never built something like this before. I've never built something that relies this heavily on symmetry, because, like I said, it's a very symmetrical thing. A lot of the, well, pretty much everything has a line of symmetry somewhere. All of the building sizes are very specific. In certain places, the buildings only go 3 tiles or 3 units away from the road. In other places, they go 4. And I had to remember that going the whole way around the build, because it was that way we would have, I guess, equally sized buildings the whole way around. For example, this avenue road that I'm zoning on right now, some of the buildings in some of the corners are 3x2, whereas other ones are 3x3, and some are 4x3. So, you know, it was a very specific thing, and there is more repetition coming up when we get down to the next tier, which I think we're about to do. Yeah, we are. So that tier we just finished is where all of our residential zoning goes. The tier that we're now working on, that we're now carving out, is where all of the industrial zoning goes. Well, again, all of the industrial zoning, and we end up with some commercial zoning down there. I don't think I actually recorded me putting in the commercial zoning. I think that's something I wound up doing in the space between me finishing the recording of the time-lapse and then going to record the cinematic shots afterwards, because there were a lot of complaints that the industrial zones, the industrial buildings, had nowhere to ship their goods, because at the time, the only commercial we had in the entire city was the tiny bit of commercial zoning we put up on the very top. So I actually take out a few sections of industrial zoning, and then I add in commercial, so it sort of balances it out. It is a very interesting balance of residential, commercial, and industrial in this city. There's an absolute buttload of residential. There is a reasonable amount of office space, and there's not that much commercial. There really isn't. There isn't as much as I would have liked, but in the end, I think I did strike a balance. I think the balance is just about there. Not in terms of like something that you'd necessarily want to play, but from something that sort of just about works. I think I sort of struck a reasonable balance. I just went about and changed all of those bridges that you're seeing there. Those are actually alternating 4-lane one-way roads. Some of them go up to the next tier, some of them come down, and later on you're actually going to see me change a couple of them to accommodate the highways that come in. So it used to be a pattern that you would have one of them going up, the other going down, the next going up, down, and the whole way around it would follow that pattern. Later on, we just destroy that pattern because the highways need better... The traffic coming off of highways needed a better way to flow about some of the tiers. So some of them, in some places, it goes up, down. It's like a cheat code. It's up, down, left, right. No, sorry, it was L1, L2... What was that cheat code in GTA? Was that Weapons 1? Or was that Lose the Cops? I think it was GTA 3. It was L1, L2, R1, R2, left down, right up. I think it's weird that I still remember that, actually. I haven't played GTA 3 in a very long time, especially on a PS2. But I'm pretty sure that was Weapons 1. And then it was like L1, L2, R1, R2, left down, right up, left down, up. It was left down was Weapons 3. Was it left down, right up, left right was Weapons 2? I don't remember. It's completely irrelevant and doesn't matter. But I guess it's, you know, a bit of filler commentary for the most repetitive part of this build, which was putting in all of these roads for the industrial zones. And, oh, I'm actually done with it. Beautiful. I wasn't looking. I was sort of looking down and trying to imagine a PS2 controller in my head, in my hands, so... That's what happened there. Whatever the case, we added in all of the industrial zoning. In a little bit, we're going to go about and add some more zoning down to that bottom tier. But at this point, it just came time to cut off the excess terrain and then start working on bringing up a bit of a slope. I didn't want to smooth this out perfectly because it needed to look basically like a wedding cake. That's what this is supposed to sort of look like. I did smooth out the sides though. Like I do bring the terrain up, but it's still quite a sharp incline there. It's not straight vertical, but it's a sharp enough incline that you can clearly see, oh god, this is something ridiculous. And I like that. I do. I actually like that incline. I think it works much better. It does actually hide some of the ugly terrain glitches that we were seeing with the transparent or the sort of see-through, the holes in the world, as it were. You'll see some of those in the cinematics at the end of the video. What we're doing now is possibly my favorite part of this entire build because it turned out exactly how I had pictured it and how I'd drawn it. So, we're gonna put a river in here. There is gonna be a river that comes from nowhere. It comes from the base of the, is it the Cathedral of Plentitude or something like that? It comes from the base of that cathedral and it just flows out to the sea. In my mind, this is sort of a sci-fi sort of looking futuristic weird kind of city that you'd probably see in an anime of some sort. So it's fine. You'd see this in like Final Fantasy or something. It's fine that the water's coming from nowhere. We'll say it's a natural spring. It's a natural spring that has a ridiculous amount of water pouring out of it. But whatever, that doesn't make sense. But whatever, it's fine. Going ahead there and carving into the side of our slope, we want to make sure we have a channel for the water to flow into because, as you'll see in a little bit, I did have some problems with getting the water to flow to begin with, and we end up using, I think, 2 water sources to make this whole thing work. But there we go, just sort of having the channel for the water just filter out a little bit and widen as it gets to the mouth of the river, as it were. And it actually splits off in a couple of directions there. That was just something I wanted to do for the sake of it, to make it look a little bit, just a little bit more natural, because rivers don't just flow in straight lines, they meander, and they have, for example, the outside banks on that river are, they go out a bit further than you might necessarily expect them to, because the, the water's flowing out that way, and it's flowing a bit quicker, and it's all that stuff, so it's gonna erode the outside bank more, that's going to erode the inside one. So, that's a fact. I think I learned, that was geography I learned that in. There's a fun fact for you, which is, interestingly relates to a lot of the comments we got in the previous Let's Build, which were that I don't know geography. I do. I just spoke quickly, and it sounded like I said that the UK isn't in the EU. I know it is. I'm fully aware of it. I know, okay? Whatever the case, you saw me there going ahead and putting in all of the sort of water pipes. What we're doing here is creating a lake, and this is sort of cheating, but I'm doing it anyway because, well, to hell with it. This lake is basically where all of the sewage is going, and it will just stay there, and it'll be glorious. That's basically so I didn't have to pump it out into our rivers and sort of destroy the look of that area, as it were. So that was why we did that. Now here's something that annoys me. I really wanted to add the Eden Project to this spot. As it turns out, the Eden Project is just a little bit, it was going to be off-center. So I didn't bother, basically. I just didn't bother adding it there. I think I add it right here, actually. And it's still off-center. It still annoys the hell out of me. But it has to do. There's not really much I can do about it. Which sucks, but whatever. It's fine. The Eden Project looks decent enough up the top there. And I think that is actually the last landmark I added in. It might very well have been. I'm not entirely sure. But here we go, adding in the highways. As you can see, they are ridiculous. I believe the height they're going up to there is 500, 450, possibly 400 or 350 meters. So, they're going from like 12 meters to a couple of hundred. Not necessarily realistic, but this entire build is a little bit unrealistic, so you're going to have to deal with that. And in a moment, you'll probably see me swapping about those one-way roads so they go different ways. But at the moment, just adding in some office space down by the industrial zone, which is basically just what I thought would be a good way to fill out some of the extra space we have down there. I didn't want to add in any commercial at this point, and I didn't want to add in any residential, so office it was. Going ahead here and adding in the district. I was originally going to have 3 districts, 1 for each tier, until I figured out that the top 2 districts, or the top 2 tiers, really only had to be one because I wanted them to have the international theme. So in the end, we get rid of Valley Park and just have Elk Hills. I didn't rename them because that was completely pointless. And I used a mod there that I discovered recently, which lets me force upgrade the zoning for, or the buildings in his district. Interestingly, that same mod allows me to set the entire district on fire. Those are very different things. That's an interesting piece of functionality from a mod that I imagine most people use to force upgrade the level of buildings within a district. It's just interesting. You can upgrade all of the buildings in this district, or you can burn it down. That was curious indeed. But as you can see there, even with me force upgrading, there are loads of little green arrows there, which means that the stuff's all upgrading anyway. That'll be because of the Eden project and all of the all the landmarks and stuff that we have around here. And I think the services in this city actually wind up being pretty good too. I have all of my education up in the top tier. You can also see that the traffic was a bit of a nightmare. I do end up sort of fixing that. But the services in the city are all up at the top tier. All of the education and stuff like that's up there. There are police stations and hospitals and fire stations at the top as well. I do end up adding in, if I haven't already, the big medical center that's a landmark so that everyone can have health coverage. Same with the whatever landmark it is that gives you better education. Like I said, all of the landmarks wind up in here, so the coverage for stuff in the city is just absolutely perfect, and everyone has perfect coverage. Adding in a bunch of trees here to fill out the green space, because why not? I really didn't want to get into too much detail with every green space in this city, because, I mean, I was going on 3 hours at this point, so what I decided to do was just fill it up with a bunch of trees, because I did want it to be kind of dense. I didn't want too much green space in too many spaces. That makes no sense. Too much green space in too many places, because like I said, I want it to be kind of dense. I want the tall skyscrapers everywhere. I want it to be a sort of imposing figure that you would see and look at and go, wow, that looks kind of interesting. So what I do end up doing is the very top tier has a few parks like this, a few custom parks, as I like to call them, and I'm very happy with how they turned out. But what I ended up doing was going about and individually placing a bunch of trees because they weren't dense enough. So the top tier of this entire build has some ridiculously dense trees, but I think it really sold the look. Plus, they're really light trees. The greens are lovely and saturated, and I believe the bark on these trees, the trunks and branches are quite light as well. So it does play nicely with the theme that we have going on, that everything's very bright, especially surrounding the Cathedral of Plentitude and the Eden project there. Keeping everything nice and bright was important because it was sort of selling the look that I wanted to go for. I actually carried that look down into the residential zone as well. I didn't really go as crazy with dense trees down there, but we did go with the same light trees. And then in the darker industrial zone, we went for a darker tree because I thought it made sense. It was possibly as a result of pollution or something, which of course we don't have because we have the Eden project, but you know, we can imagine that there is maybe some kind of thing down there causing the trees to be darker, or, you know, it's just a cosmetic thing. Like I said, it's probably just cosmetic, and I'm probably creating way too much story for a city that really serves no other purpose than to look cool. But whatever the case, we are coming to the end of the video. If you've seen this before, if you've seen a Let's Build before, you'll know we're coming up to some cinematic shots. So what I'd like to say is the usual, which is if you have any ideas for a future Let's Build, do be sure to let me know. City Skylines Snowfall is coming very, very soon. I'm super excited for that. Whatever the case, thank you kind of for watching. I've been the Conflict Nerd. If you like the video, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.